So when I look around, I don't see a lot of models of relationships that I find to be aspirational. And when I ask myself what that's really about, and having gone through a lot of the healing that I've gone through post breakups, I recognize that it feels to me it has a lot to do with the fact that we're afraid to face the pain within us. We're afraid of the beliefs that we carry. And ultimately, we're afraid that this deep love and partnership that we aspire to have and to create isn't really possible. And so I thought I would talk a little bit today about my struggles being single, the things that I recognize have been really challenging, the things that I have learned through the pain and discomfort of being single, and eventually getting to the place of learning what I feel have been the biggest lessons for me to learn on my own. So after a breakup, we tend to be in a lot of pain for, pretty obvious reasons. It's very painful to transition from being in partnership with somebody to then, not having them in your life at all, or completely transforming the way that the relationship has gone. And there's other reasons as well. For many of us who've been avoiding our pain, breakups can be a portal for some of the deeper pain that's asking us to look at our relationship to ourselves to come through. So in other words, when we go through breakups, it's an opportunity for us to look at how deeply we actually love ourselves and what the limiting beliefs are that we're carrying. So for me, I'll just speak and share a little bit about my experience going through breakups. They had always been challenging for me. I always fell into some kind of a depression afterwards and would do this kind of back and forth thing where I knew that the relationship needed to end. I was often the one ending the relationship. I knew it wasn't right for either of us. I knew the other person wasn't willing to finally cut the ties, and so I would end the relationship, and then I would fall into a depression, and I didn't know it at the time, but I was very unwilling to see the things inside of myself that I needed to look at that were really about me and my relationship to myself. And so then I would get so fed up with the pain that I would reach back out to that person, and I would kind of create this story that we can work it out, we can figure it out. And it never worked. Usually what would end up happening was we would kind of do this back and forth dance for quite a while, and a lot of my energy would be expended on that person and on this situation, and I would get burnt out until I basically had nothing left to give and finally had to leave the relationship. And I would be single for periods of time where I kind of believed that, okay, this, I'm looking at the clock and this is about enough time, and now I'm ready to be in a relationship again, and wasn't really doing the deep work that I needed to be doing. And to be fair to myself and to a lot of you who might be watching this, we don't have the tools in our culture to know what the deep work is that we should be doing. I had no idea that there was a lot of pain and unprocessed emotions, a ton of limiting beliefs that I wasn't aware of. I wasn't aware that these things were operating within me. And so I was like, okay, that relationship didn't work, gonna learn the things about that relationship that didn't work, and just sort of believing that it was really about that person not being right for me and me not really being right for that person. Okay, what are the things that I can learn? Which is, it's great, right? Recognizing these are the ways that I was behaving that wasn't really, aligned with this person or aligned with my values, and kind of seeing if I can tweak those things, and those things that I can't tweak and they're just who I am. I need to have a partner who's more accepting of those things or loves those things anyway. And I think that's valid and valuable. However, there's a lot of deeper stuff that needed to come through, and I think needs to come through for a lot of us in order for me to be in the relationship that I'd always felt was possible and available, but had never experienced. In my last breakup, which was almost 3 years ago, I was blindsided. And so, I was totally taken off guard, and I thought I was gonna spend my life with this person. I was pretty in it. And the relationship ended, we completely stopped communication, and I was left with myself. And it was the most painful experience of my life because this portal opened where basically all of the pain that I had been carrying in my life kind of vomited itself up into my heart, it felt like. So it was just like my heart was carrying all of this immense grief that at the time I thought had to do with this person leaving me. And as I began to heal myself, I recognized that it was really about me. And I was in so much pain because I didn't actually think that I was worthy of love. And this took a while for me to recognize because it's not a belief, especially I was like a confident person, you know, for a lot of us, it can be really challenging for our minds to recognize that this is actually a deep wound that's living in the body. So, you know, if you're familiar with my work at all, I facilitate breath work, and I've been practicing breath work for over 5 years. So that's the tool I was using at the time to learn about myself and to process my pain. So as I was doing that, I was starting to learn some of the beliefs that I was carrying. And there was immense fear. I was deeply afraid that there wasn't really anybody out there who would love me, that the relationship that I always felt was possible was just never gonna happen. I was gonna miss him, that I really wasn't worthy of love and wasn't lovable, that, you know, how awful must I be as a person for someone just to walk out on me with no warning at all. And so a lot of these deep fears and limiting beliefs that I was carrying started to surface, and it gave me the opportunity to begin to heal those things. So for all of us, you know, there's the beliefs that we carry, and then there's the part of ourselves that knows that those beliefs are bullshit, that we're whole and lovable, and, you know, whatever we want to experience in our lives is possible. And so through my healing process, I started to love myself through the pain. And I had a kind of, I say like a soft foundation of self-love before this had happened. And what I see happening with a lot of people I work with, if you don't really have that relationship to yourself developed yet, so like not a real firm understanding or connection. So it's not an intellectual understanding, but this deeper connection to yourself where you really love and honor who you are and know how to soothe yourself and know how to give yourself what you need and have the tools and support for going through these periods of time, then oftentimes this is when we don't actually do the work. This is when we'll end up just going out and getting into another relationship, or, you know, numbing ourselves out and then recreating the same patterns in relationships over and over and over again. So if that's something that you're experiencing, where you look back and you see the same patterns in your relationship, it's probably because you haven't done the deeper work to look at the wounds that you're carrying and the limiting beliefs. So I had what I was calling a soft foundation of self-love. So I love myself. I'd been developing, you know, a relationship to myself over the years and done some healing work and processed some pain, but never pain like this, never this big, never this deep. And this was because it was the depths of myself. It was me going back and facing all of the pain through my whole life, all of the moments that I had abandoned and betrayed myself. And so I had never experienced that level of pain before, and I had to learn how to love myself through it. And in the video where I talk about what I've learned through heartbreak, I share a story about calling my mom during this period of time and asking my mom to come stay with me, and her telling me, like, I can't save you. I can't, you know, you got to do it on your own. And that was the opening for me to begin to really recognize that it's all on me. This job is on me. If I want an amazing relationship, it's on me. If I want to feel good in my body, it's on me. If I want to know what it means to love myself and value myself and truly see my worth, I'm the one who has to show up to do that work. And so I got to work. And it was a very long, grueling, painful process. And in the very beginning, I was listening to a lot of Abraham Hicks, And I think I listened to one clip that was kind of talking about, I'm pretty sure it was them that were saying like, you know, the idea of time and things needing to take a long time can be like a limiting belief. And so I was like, yeah, this is not going to take a lot of time. I'm going to, you know, I don't need to be grieving for like a year. I can, you know, get over this relationship, face the pain, dive deep into it, process all of it, move on, and fall in love really fast. And so I was even writing affirmations during that time, and it was something like my soulmate is on his way to me, and it's going to happen really fast and easy, or really quick and easy, or something like that. And so looking back at that now, it's funny because it's almost 3 years since I've been in a relationship, and I've learned a lot about myself through the past 2 years and something months, 8 months or something like that. And during that time, I was actually terrified that my soulmate that I was longing for didn't exist, and that I was going to be single for a really long time. And, you know, I think this is something that a lot of people can relate to. We have an idea in our minds of, you know, how things are going to go, and maybe certain ages. And I've kind of never was really super big on that, but still, you know, even when you're in a relationship, there's like a certain timeline that you're kind of thinking about. And so I was like, I thought by now I'd be in a relationship. I thought by now I would have met the person. And so I was like, I don't want to waste any more time. I want to be in love. I want to experience this partnership. And that's valid, you know, like I didn't want to waste any more time, and I wanted to meet him, and I wanted to be able to spend my life with him and start building our lives together. But I had some important work to do first, and that work was on its own timeline. And that's something that I had to surrender to. And I had a couple different experiences of surrendering to that. So the first was, you know, this idea, I'm like writing these affirmations, and it's going to be super quick, and it's going to be fast, and it's going to happen. And I was in so much pain. I was in so much pain. I was in a very, very deep depression. I was, you know, sobbing daily. I lost appetite, lost weight, had really no energy to even really be working out. The only movement in my body I was doing was Yin Yoga, which is like holding yoga poses for like 3 to 11 minutes. So was really not doing much movement with my body, and was spending a lot of time grieving. And that's what I needed to be doing during that time. And that was fine, but I was judging the process. I wanted it to go faster. And that was because the pain was so unbearable that I didn't want to be in it. And so I tell this story quite often, or I had a moment, this is one of my big teaching points with a lot of my clients, because it's one of the hardest things for us to learn, but it is the process of surrendering. And so I was in a deep depression, and I was in a laundromat, and I was just like watching my clothes spinning over and over and over again. And at this time during my healing process, it was almost like my body would get filled up with sorrow, with deep grief, until it would like start to just pour out of my eyes. And I could feel it building and just getting really heavy in my body, and I'm watching the clothes spinning. And I was reading Pema Chodron's When Things Fall Apart, and I don't remember what exactly I read. I think just her general transmission is very powerful, so it could have been anything in that book. And I'm like praying for my clothes to get done so I can get home, and I'm not like sobbing in the laundromat. And I make my way home, and I just like start sobbing inside. And I just had this feeling like, you need to surrender. This is it. There's nothing you can do about this process except for be in it and be really attentive to your needs and listening to what your pain is trying to teach you. And I, at that point, was in like the worst pain that I had been feeling, and very, very deep depression where I didn't want to live anymore. And the day before, I think the reason this got brought on was that the day before I had felt a little bit better, and then the next morning, that morning at the laundromat, just felt like 100 times worse. And so I had this surrendering that wasn't intellectual. It was very deep soul level. Okay, I'm in it. I'm in it. This is why I created a program, a one-on-one program called Relentless Healers. I decided to commit to my healing relentlessly. I will show up for it no matter how long it takes, no matter how painful it is. And I did. And so once I had that surrendering, this whole idea of how it needing to happen just faded away. And instead of me needing it to be quick and easy, I just was tending to myself. So instead of it being about this idea that I had for my life, it was about what was really happening within me. It was about tending to the pain within me and being really willing to love myself through it. So about a year and a half after a breakup, I was over my ex. That felt pretty clear and clean. And I felt I was really, in a new place in my life. I had healed so much. I had reclaimed all of these lost parts of myself. I understand myself more clearly. I started to recognize, who I am in this world, what I'm here to do, what I'm here to share. I started to move through some of my deep fears and using my voice more and just showing up more fully in the world. And so I was feeling like pretty good in my life, and I decided probably in a place where I'm like ready to be in a relationship. And so I was opening myself up to it. And not long after, I was just feeling like something feels off. Like I don't really feel excited about dating. I don't really feel that open to dating actually. Like what's this about? This doesn't make sense. And I realized that I had like this belief that, oh, okay, well just because I'm over my ex, then that means I'm open to being in a relationship, or that means it's time to be in a relationship. And what I actually needed during that time was to enjoy being on my own and being single out of heartbreak. So not being in pain anymore, not grieving the loss of this relationship, not grieving all of these abandoned parts of myself, really fully being and experiencing who I am, what do I like, how do I like to spend my time, and just having it all to myself, just enjoying it all for me. And I've been single before for periods of time throughout my life, but they were never periods of time when I actually knew myself the way that I knew myself after this deep healing. And so I decided, okay, I'm actually just not ready to be in a relationship right now, and that's okay. And again, it was the second part of my mind thinks that I'm supposed to be ready for something that I'm not ready for, and letting that be okay. And so I surrendered to that again. And then about, 4 or 5 months ago, it was summertime here in LA, and I had bought a house out in the desert near Joshua Tree and had come back to LA for the summer, and was like really excited for like summer energy, like open and pool parties and meeting new people and fresh love and all of the fun, exciting newness of summer. And I got to LA, and my soul had something totally different in store for me, and that was I started to sink into a depression and have learned so much about the healing process, about myself and the human experience up to this point that I was like, all right, know what I need to do. Not going out to pool parties, not falling in love right now. I am staying at home, and I am feeling into this. What is this really about? And what ended up coming through that was a course, my first course curriculum that was mine, that came through me, which is called Unbroken, Working Through Depression. So that's part of why I was falling into the depression at that time. But also the depression was teaching me, so it was reminding me of all of the lessons, because I hadn't experienced it in quite a while. And so it gave me an opportunity to write down all of the teachings and all of the different things that contribute to depression. But it also was teaching me, giving me another opportunity to learn to be alone without being lonely, to learn how to be on my own in a period of time that doesn't feel that great, and to take care of myself. That doesn't mean I didn't reach out to people, but I was like selectively reaching out to people, and only reaching out to people in a way that was not asking them to fix me or make me better, because I knew that in order for me to be in the relationship that I want to be in the future, I have to be willing to take care of myself in a way where I'm not asking someone else to do for me what I'm not willing to do for myself. So after this period of time, I came out of that. I look back now and I'm like, damn, like I have matured even more than I knew was possible for myself. And of course, for me, my path is that I'm always going to be growing. So, from one perspective, you could say, I don't need to wait for anything, like my partner can come in at any time. But I do believe that there are certain things that we need to learn in order to be in a place where we're open and available for the right partnership to come through. So this is very deeply personal work, and only you will know for yourself. But from my experience and with a lot of people that I work with, I do know that this is an area that we struggle with a lot, because some of the biggest fears show up when we're alone. And some of our biggest pain points to the fear that we're unlovable and that there's nobody out there for us, and all of the things that will spiral in, all of the thoughts and fears that come in when we start to dip into that and we don't really know how to deal with it. So my recommendation is always to start working with breath work. I have a free guided audio that you can start to try, and I will put that in the link below this video. Aside from that, I'm available for one-on-one work. This is an area that I have a ton of experience, and I really do want to emphasize that it is so worth it. It is so worth getting to know who it is you really are on your own outside of relationship. And a lot of people don't really have this opportunity. If you've been in a relationship for a really long time, you have a family and you have kids, and you're not interested in leaving that relationship, it can be more challenging, because this is something that I've learned in a lot of my relationships, I had been really afraid to grow because I knew that I was going to outgrow my partner. And I knew I was going to end up having to leave that relationship. And when that relationship feels really good, love feels good. And, it felt very safe. I didn't want to leave that relationship. So, looking back at the blindsiding breakup, it was a great gift, because that was not the relationship for me. And as I would have eventually grown, over time, I wouldn't have stayed just being who I am. I wouldn't have stayed in that space forever. But eventually I would have outgrown that person, and that relationship would have had to have ended. So while recording this video, I'm not in a relationship right now. I am fully trusting that he's coming in. I don't have any fear that he's not. And I love my life and I love who I am so much right now that I'm not worried about it. It all happened in divine time as it needs to. And in the meantime, I'm going to keep showing up for my work. So if you are single right now, this is a really, really important time for you, and you can utilize it, and you can really learn about yourself and transform and learn the big lessons that you need to learn, so that you can actually call in the person who you deeply know you desire, that love that you deeply are yearning for. And if you don't want to do that work and you avoid it, you'll probably end up being in a relationship that's similar to the relationships that haven't worked out before. It might look a little different, but over time you'll start to see the same patterns. So wherever you're at with it, just pay really close attention. If you need one-on-one support, I am here. I am happy to work with you, and I will put the link to work with me one-on-one below as well. So I hope this video resonated with you in some way. If it did, I would really appreciate it if you like the video and subscribe to my channel. If you subscribe, you'll be notified every time a new video goes live. Thanks so much for being here with me, and I hope to see you next time.